Hello, today on my channel you will hear an amazing story about life. I hope you enjoy this story. This one struck me to the core. Honestly, I still can't forget it. Enjoy watching.
Mallory was born into an ordinary family. She had a mom and dad who were very happy when their baby girl was born. As the girl grew up, the family moved several times. "Lucy, come on, leave your daughter to me and go to work yourself," said the woman's mother. "Oh, I don't know, isn't it early?" the woman doubted. "Nothing, someone needs to earn money. If we wait for your husband, it will not work out." Mother-in-law disliked her son-in-law from the first day. "Okay, I'll think about it and look for a good option." My daughter still had doubts. Before getting pregnant, Lucy worked in a kindergarten. She was in good standing. But lately, her husband had started abusing alcohol. The woman did not want him to get drunk and began to sit down with him for a drink. She thought that if she did it, her husband would get less. "Ninka, where are you?" shouted at the door a friend who came to work and saw that she was not there. She immediately ran to their house. "Why are you yelling?" She opened the door. "You're going to get fired," her friend begged her. "Tell her I'm sick," Lucy begged. "You've been given so many chances." She looked at her. "I can't." She didn't even close the door, went back to bed. They didn't pity her, they fired her. No one knew she was pregnant then. "Alexander, we have to stop." They were sitting in the kitchen again. "You have to stop." "You stop," he exhaled. "I'm pregnant." She looked at him and waited for a reaction. "So what?" He didn't seem to understand the gravity of the situation. But when his wife's belly began to grow, Alexander somehow settled down. He stopped drinking heavily and started courting his wife. It took her a long time to recover from her drunken past, but by the 6th month everything was fine. "Did they fire you?" Alexander asked. She probably shrugged her shoulders. "And now what?" lamented her husband. "And you?" She still hoped that he would take the mine and start doing something. The girl was born, her parents were happy. Her grandmother, Nina's mother, came and helped her daughter with everything. And when she and her husband went back to their old ways, she tried to get her to go to work. Mallory was 3 years old when she was put in kindergarten. Lucy never got a job. But now she and her mom were sitting at the table together. "I'm so sick," her daughter told her. "Why?" The mother was getting drunk fast. "I don't know." She held her head. Alexander had come to his senses by this time. He looked at the drunken women and didn't want to continue. He was now working as a watchman in a warehouse. "Stop it." My husband yelled at Lucy at home tonight. "Why are you yelling?" She'd get up from the table. "Fuck you." The child is growing up without a care, and they are sitting around, the man resented. When Mallory was 3, her grandmother had been paralyzed. Now she was lying in bed. Lucy didn't do anything. She just wasn't able to. The sick woman screamed a lot. The neighbors heard it, but no one took action. "This is what your drunkenness has brought to." Alexander stayed in the apartment, but there was no family anymore. He found out that there was an organization in town that could take in a sick woman. He started the paperwork. But perhaps from malnutrition, or the fact that there was no treatment, she died. "You don't even care now?" The husband yelled at his wife, and she sat in the kitchen, shaggy, in a faded robe. "Go on," she waved him away. "I'll go and see what happens to you." He fought the woman's drunkenness as best he could. "And that's none of your business." She could no longer see him well. Mallory was 7 years old. She went to school. But it wasn't all white bows and pretty uniforms. She'd always been pretty in kindergarten. Her mom had always made her pretty. And now, a crumpled uniform, a ponytail that she'd somehow braided herself. "Mallory, why do you look so unkempt?" her teacher asked her. She didn't have time. The girl didn't know what to answer. She was defending her mother. "What do you mean?" She didn't have time. "Your mom should be doing it." The woman was indignant. "She's sick," the girl said guiltily. "And what was it?" I wondered. A lot of people in town knew what Lucy was doing. Mallory suffered. She would first come home, sit down beside her mother, who was asleep, and stroke her head. "Mommy, I'm hungry," she would sometimes say quietly. Her father was often not home, and the girl would eat what was in the refrigerator or on the table. Mallory, a man would come in the morning from the shift. "Daddy, I'm so hungry." She was wobbly. "Here, take this." He'd hand her a bun. They used to make fun of the girl at school. She was always forgetting everything, sitting on the last desk. She didn't answer in class, studied very badly because there was no supervision at home. "If this continues, you just get a certificate of graduation," said class teacher Mallory when she was already in the 5th grade. "And that shouldn't concern you," the girl replied defiantly. Her mother didn't even look human anymore. Lucy realized that no one would lose her at home, so she went out and did whatever she wanted. "Where have you been?" her father would ask her when he came home from work. "Out for a walk," was all she'd say. But by and large, he didn't care about his daughter. He'd pack up his fishing gear and leave. Mallory woke up in the morning. She was going to school. She was 14 years old. Her mother was lying on the couch, her arm dangling to the floor. "Mom, you again?" Her daughter wanted to lift her hand, but that one fell back involuntarily. The girl was frightened. She began to shake the woman, but she could not wake up. "What are you doing?" She wasn't little and she wasn't stupid. Mallory squatted down. Listen, the mother's heart was no longer beating. The girl sat down on the floor, leaned her back against the wall. She cried to the point of tears. She heard the key turn in the keyhole, but Mallory sat still, unmoving. "Why aren't you at school?" Her father came in, staring at her. "Mom died," the daughter said through her tears. "You're drunk." Alexander got angry. "Why did you do that?" Mallory looked at him. "I'll be right back. I should have called." The man went to the neighbors. They had a phone. He called the doctors. They came and took the body away. And then there was the funeral, where Mallory looked at the woman who was her mother. She knew she was gone. "So that's it. It's just you and me now." The man hugged the girl. "Kurt," was all the girl said that day. Mallory's studies never corrected. She decided she didn't need it at all. The girl was constantly being called to the principal's office. She was blamed for everything. "I don't need your school," she said in a loud voice to the principal. "So go away." Could no longer tolerate her behavior at school. "And I'll leave." She turned around. The girl saw nothing good in her life, so she followed in the footsteps of her parents. She got involved with a bad company. They go out till morning, hang out at someone's house. "Mallory, do you want to end up like your mother?" her father asked her. He tried his best to get his daughter out, but time was running out. She was on her own now. "Aren't you going to study?" Alexander asked her. "Tell me why I need it." She looked at him defiantly. He was sitting in the kitchen, waiting for the kettle to boil. "Now commerce is developing. I will work in a stall and then look, and then I'll have my own," Mallory said with such confidence, as if she already had something. "Don't say oops before you jump," grinned her father. He thought back to his youth. How ambitious he'd been. He also thought everything in life would be easy. His friends went to the neighboring town to enter the technical school. Mallory rushed with them. "What if it works out?" The girl told them. Well, they laughed. Naturally, Mallory didn't get in. She wasn't going to leave yet. She liked this town. Compared to her hometown, there were a lot of cafes and different eateries here. That's where she met John. "Why, it's so beautiful and alone." He came on to her then. "I didn't ask you." The girl also answered him. "Let's go to our place." He nodded at the table where 2 other guys were sitting. "There you go." She was cracking up even though she hadn't eaten anything since this morning. "Come on," the guy kept up. "He did," she said grudgingly. "Guys, there's a girl here." They came to the table. "Hi." They didn't show much interest. "Should I order something?" the young man asked. I don't know, she was indifferent, though she wanted to shout, "Yes, order me some food," but she couldn't do that. "Okay, I'll do it myself." He went to the counter. After that, he brought a couple of cakes and tea. "Thank you." Mallory carefully took the food and started chewing. After the guys got to know each other, John invited Mallory to visit. She didn't refuse because she had been sleeping around for a long time. When she could sneak into a girl's dorm, she was there. Otherwise, at some acquaintances. "Are you brave?" he asked her. "What are you talking about?" She really didn't understand. No reason. He looked away. "Do you live alone?" The girl got curious. "Why would you do that?" He was busy putting on a duvet cover. "Just to find out," she hummed. Done, he made her bed. Mallory lay down. John started to lie down next to her. "You what?" She jumped up. "What did you think? It's all for nothing." He turned to her. "You're a freak." Mallory realized she wasn't going anywhere. They spent the night together, and then the girl thought she'd stay with the guy for a while. She had nowhere to live, and he had his own apartment, and he had money. John also didn't mind. There was a girl who could clean and cook. He was taking advantage of her. "You're going out again," he told her once again. She put on her lipstick, put on her shoes, and went out. Mallory wanted to get a job somewhere. She'd been turned down almost everywhere, and rightly so. She didn't even have a high school education. "Will you go and wash dishes?" the owner of the local cafe asked her. "I'll go," rejoiced the girl. She needed to get a grip at least somewhere, and then she could take another position. "Well, then come back tomorrow," the future boss told her. After that, happy Mallory went home. "What's today?" John went out into the hallway. He thought she was doing something bad, but he wasn't repulsed. "Got a job," she mumbled over her shoulder. "I see, so congratulations are in order." He followed her into the kitchen. "Congratulations," she turned and looked at him. "Why are you looking at me like that?" He looked around to see if anyone was behind him. "I don't know what to do." She was really thinking about leaving the guy now, but she was afraid to do it. Understandably, just when the money glimmered ahead, she immediately decided to run away. He went to the room. Mallory didn't follow. She was alone. The girl sat in the kitchen, drinking tea, and thought, why in her life everything is so? Why she, like that Cinderella, did not meet her prince, and she has to just exist? "Well, you're not coming, are you?" John came to her. Now, she decided not to chop off her shoulder. Everything was comfortable here for now. She went into the room, and they began to get ready for bed. Tomorrow was going to be a busy day, so they needed to get some sleep. "Don't," she pulled his hands away from her. "Come on, I missed you." He started to whine, but Mallory remained unapproachable that evening. The next day, she began to choose what she would wear. Almost all of the clothes were bright and provocative. The girl didn't know how her boss would view it. She chose one dress that was below her knees, but it was so old and stretched out that she didn't even want to put it on. "Hello," said Mallory hello to the women in the kitchen. They showed her to her workstation. Mallory began to work. How hard it was. So many dishes were piling up that her back was falling off. "How are you coping?" After a week, Selena Georgievna, who ran the place, came to her. So far, she looked back at the sink, where the dishes never dwindled, no matter how much Mallory washed them. "One of the waitresses is leaving. Will you take her place?" the woman asked her. "When?" She wanted to drop everything and go out into the hall right now. "I don't know." She didn't talk about it yet, just hinted, watching the boss, how others work. "Yes, I agree, but don't give the place to anyone else," Mallory asked Selena. "Okay, as long as she promised," she smiled. The woman immediately saw some potential in the girl. She'd been like that herself, cocky and arrogant. And when this young girl came into her cafe, she felt a kind of maternal pity for her. Mallory worked honestly, though she was like that, but she didn't want to lose her place, especially since she had been offered to be a waitress. She liked the hostess too. She couldn't say why, but there was something about her. "You can start another job tomorrow," Selena told her. She allowed her subordinates to call her by her first name without a middle name. "Thank you for believing me." She was the only one Mallory talked to like this calmly. "Great, you'll thank me later when you open your own cafe." The woman winked at her. Mallory was enjoying her work now. She wore her short skirts, brightly painted, saw that men paid attention to her. They left the occasional generous tip. "Hey, beautiful," a man in his late teens slapped her on the rear end once. "Good day to you too," she turned to him. "Sit with us?" he asked. Not supposed to. She wanted to move on, but the man grabbed her arm and sat her on his lap. "Don't you know me?" he whispered in her ear. "Back off you." She pulled away from him. "Oh, I like those," he laughed. "Austin, leave the girl alone." The hostess came out into the hall. That's it, Selena." He looked at Mallory and winked. That was it. She wanted to show in her tongue, but she restrained herself. There were many more who liked the girl. They grabbed her, tried to pinch her, but she waved them all away. One day, Mallory was walking home and a car pulled up beside her. "Get in." It was the same Austin driving. No, she was walking by. "Are you stupid?" he asked her. No, she was walking on. "Stop." He tried to talk her down. "Leave me alone." Mallory was just scared of him. "Wait a minute." The man had already gotten out of the car. "Come with me, I'll make you rich." "Gold, you say?" She stopped and looked at him. But the man didn't care anymore. He looked at this young, pretty girl and was ready for anything. "Yes," nodded Austin. "Let's go." She got in the front seat. They drove to his apartment. For some reason, I thought you had a house, she said. I wonder why. He pulled out a cognac. I don't know. She was looking at what was on the shelves. Well, Mallory, come on, to introductions. He handed her a shot. Come on, she took one for courage. The next day, the girl told Selena everything. You be careful with him, she warned him. Why? Could something happen? The girl looked at her. It could, the woman smiled oddly. But Mallory didn't believe that Austin could hurt her. He was so good, loving her, dusting her off. She decided not to think about this conversation. If anything was going to happen, she could always stop it. She had to go to John's to get her stuff. Austin, let's go to the place where I used to live, she asked her new roommate. Why do you need all this old stuff? I'll buy you new stuff, he told her. Okay, she'd sit on his lap. Mallory liked it when a man treated her like that. She couldn't have wished for anything better. But one night his friends came over. Get out of here, he commanded her. Austin, what are you doing? She couldn't believe he could talk to her like that. I said leave us alone. He gave her a stern look. I'm not going anywhere. She lifted her head and stood like that further away. He walked over to her, took her elbow painfully, and almost on his weight, led her out of the room. I love you, of course, but when I have visitors, they must not see you, the man resented. What secrets? She held onto her sore arm. I'd said all. He walked back. Mallory took offense at him. She sat in the kitchen. She wanted to cry. What to do? Live for the money or leave? She walked quietly to the bedroom, opened the nightstand. Mallory saw that Austin kept money there, took some, and went into the hallway. The things were pitiful, but there was no time at all to pack them up. She ran out of there, her heels glistening. Selena, she came to the boss. I see it started. She looked at Mallory's view. What started? She didn't understand. Nothing, she waved her hand. I'll probably quit and leave here. He'll find me anyway, Mallory said, confused. I'm not holding out. The woman waved her hands. At first, there was chaos in her head. The girl didn't know where to go. The first thing she decided to do was to go to the train station. There was a train on the platform. She went to the ticket office. I need a ticket for the next flight, she told the woman. It leaves in 15 minutes, she said, and handed her a ticket. Mallory smiled. Her adventure was beginning again. She boarded the very same train. It was traveling northbound. The girl went to bed, and in the morning when she woke up, she got right off. She didn't know what station this was, or if there was anything here at all. Hello. She stopped near a man who got in her way. Where can I get a room near? My place. He was looking at her. Good, she was happy. She just arrived and she was so lucky. Together with Harvey, they walked towards the houses. It turned out to be a small village. Mallory liked it at Colia's place, but only that he lived here, a little embarrassed. Don't be afraid, he said. Everything will be all right. But not a week later, Harvey had a drink somewhere and came home. Mallory was asleep, and he was all over her, and she didn't even squeak. In the morning, Mallory wanted to pack up and run away, but Harvey came out to her. Don't be offended. I liked you, he said guiltily. Yeah, you could have asked nicely, she said. All right, stay here, we'll live. I'll help you with your job, he offered. Good. There was nowhere else for her to go. From then on, she had a new roommate. Harvey did help her get a job, but that wasn't Mallory's dream. He himself worked as a repairman when needed. He would go out on commission, helping people make repairs. Mallory had started doing that too. At first it didn't work out, but then she got the hang of it. We're going again tonight, he told the girl of the evening. How, we're just from the order. My arms fall off, almost cried the girl. No money? Stay home. Harvey didn't talk much. And Mallory was on her way. Somehow the man had already finished all his business, but Mallory still had work to do, and she stayed. Soon the landlady came in. Oh, you're still here. She was afraid the light was on. Yes, not much left, showed her Mallory. When the girl had done everything, the landlady offered her tea. No, thank you. Mallory wanted to get out of here and go home and go to bed. He's cheating on you, the woman muttered as Mallory was about to leave. What? Who? She turned around. You're Harvey. The landlady came up to her. In fact, he's getting more. How's that? Mallory was puzzled. I saw how much money he gave you last time, and he got several times as much, she said. What an asshole, Mallory said angrily. She could see herself coming home and telling that asshole everything. Listen, why don't you get a job? There's a need for young professionals. The landlady looked surprised. And I don't know where. Mallory felt a rope of salvation tugging at her. I'll write you an address. I think they give you a place to live there. The woman scribbled a couple of lines on a piece of paper. Thank you. She left the apartment. She didn't want to go home, but she had to. She gritted her teeth and did it. Nicolay was gone. Mallory figured he'd come back drunk again. That's how it turned out, and so that there would be no scandal, she agreed to everything. Already in the morning, the girl was at the very same address. They were really looking for a worker there, and her candidacy was suitable. She was glad, although the labor was a little bit hard for her. I was told that you provide accommodation. She looked at the man who was talking to her. Yes, but these are just ordinary carriages, he said and pointed to a row of them. I agree, she didn't need more. Okay, go get the key, he showed her. Mallory didn't know how she was doing it all. She had actually found a job, and they were offering good money too. Now she was not only earning money here, but she was also going to other people's houses at the instinct of old clients. Mallory, hi. She was approached by a man who lived here. Hey, she'd only known Harry for a few days. Look, I saw you the other day, and I couldn't believe a pretty girl like you could work here, he said. You say that too, she showed him her hands. It's true, he stroked her palms. Mallory had settled down a bit here. She wasn't such a tosser anymore, though she enjoyed yelling at someone. Look, let's live together. You're single, I'm single. What's stopping us? He suggested it. What are you doing? She looked at him. Why, it's difficult here, and here everything is ready. He did not insist, but spoke with pressure. Well, no, she got up and walked off. After that, Harry began to look after her. Where there was anything that needed help, he was right on top of it. Harry, I told you I don't want anything from you. Mallory was getting tired of his advances. I'm just doing this out of the goodness of my heart. He looked at her and smiled. Why don't you want to go out with him? You don't have anyone else. Her partner asked her. Listen, this is my life. I want a rich and self-sufficient man, not this driver, she nodded in his direction. Well, sort it out yourselves, or I'll be blamed later, the woman continued her work. The courtship continued, but now it became more insistent. One day the employees gathered to celebrate something. Mallory herself does not know, but she found herself in bed with Harry. Apparently he was very persistent. It did happen. She put her hand over her eyes. So you want to say yes now? He asked. Oh, Harry, don't bother, she looked away. Come on, Mallory, we'll make a full apartment out of our 2 carriages, all with our own hands. He hugged her from the back. At first, Mallory resisted a little, but then she got bored with it. She figured it wouldn't take anything away from her. Harry took advantage of that, and now he's standing in front of her door with flowers. Marry me, he says, smiling through his 32 teeth. Are you out of your mind? She looked around to make sure no one was around, or the rumors would spread. He didn't understand why 2 people couldn't live without each other. Come in, she let him in. Well, have you given up? Asked her partner at work. Why would she do that? Mallory was ashamed of herself for saying she didn't need him, and now it turns out she did. I saw you 2 whispering in the corners, her friend kept finishing the wall. So what? Mallory didn't understand. She always did what she wanted, so now she didn't understand what they wanted her to do. Nothing, if he proposes, take it and get married. She got nervous. And don't yell, Mallory told her in the same tone. They never spoke again. The girl was returning home. She had already made up her mind that she would accept Harry, both an assistant and a good lover. And he didn't need any invitations. He was already sitting on Mallory's porch. Hi, he stood up and greeted her. Understandably, she stood, not approaching him. Mallory, you got an idea or not? He came up to her. Yes, I've thought about it. That's it. Come on, make up your mind. She stood there and said it to him with a grin. That's it. You'll be the happiest. He was very happy. They applied. They were quickly signed in. There was no line. From that moment, Harry and Mallory started living together. He made arrangements with the men as promised. They pulled his wagon up to the same one that belonged to Mallory. Only then did he go to buy material for exterior and interior paneling. Harry, I didn't expect this from you. She saw how well he was doing. You know, I didn't think I could do it myself. Someone told me, showed me. He wasn't bragging, just telling me the facts. And it's kind of a family, and Mallory's calmed down. She couldn't say that she was very fond of the man, but compared to all the others, she had some feelings for him. "Mallory, look at your Harry's hands," her co-workers sometimes told her. "Why do you admire him so much?" She didn't understand. If the truth be told, she was afraid of her feelings, because every day Mallory realized that she was falling in love with this man more and more. She didn't say it out loud, but she knew about it. "Where are you going?" she asked her husband. "What's with all the suspicions lately?" He didn't understand her. It's just that before he never went anywhere, but lately he's been frequenting. By that time they had lived together for 2 years. "Are you jealous?" He smiled. Finally he achieved that his wife loved him. Now let her run after him, not he after her. She didn't want to give away her feelings. That's why she hurt her husband. From that moment, she had to do everything so that he would not suspect her close attention and love. Perhaps if she hadn't acted that way then, there would have been nothing wrong with her life, because Harry loved her and wanted her to be happy. You can't live in a sick relationship, and everyone knows that. And if you're suspected at every turn, you'll become one. "I'm home." She came home from work. In the hallway, she noticed Harry had already returned, but there was also a woman's pair of shoes standing there. Mallory shook. She couldn't get control of herself. The girl went into the room. "Ah, Mallory, hello." Her husband stood in front of her. A young woman was sitting on the couch. "Who's that?" she asked with a numb tongue. "What are you? What's wrong?" Harry was scared for her. "I ask again, who is this?" She pointed her finger at the girl. "Meet my sister. This is my sister. She came to visit just a few hours ago," he said more than confidently. "La, you scared her." She sat down on the couch. "Mallory." "Victoria," chirped the young guest. "Why didn't you warn me right away?" The wife still couldn't believe it. "About what?" "I didn't know," he said calmly. They sat together for a while, and then Harry went into the kitchen to make dinner. He whistled a tune to himself. "Everything is ready. Come into the kitchen," he called out to the girls. They ate, and afterwards Victoria wanted to go for a walk. "You go, and I'll lie down for a while," Mallory said and went to her room. Harry and his guests quickly dressed and went out. Mallory lay quietly on the couch. For some reason, there was some satisfaction today. In the morning, the girl woke up and quietly, so as not to wake anyone, began to get ready for work. It seemed strange to her that Harry was lying on the floor next to his sister. Probably came in last night and lay like that, didn't want to wake her up. She washed her face, got dressed and left. "Hi," said Mallory hello to Maddie at work. "How's it going?" she asked her. "You know, I don't feel so good." Mallory couldn't explain her condition. "That's good." Her partner was happy for her. They had worked all day. In the evening, when Mallory was coming home, she saw Harry and Victoria walking towards her. "Are you going out with us today?" her husband asked her. "Look, you work too. Don't you get tired?" she asked him. "I took a few days off," the man admitted. "I see what you mean." Mallory walked past them. She walked into the house, her anger a little added. There was nothing in the kitchen or refrigerator. "You've been home all day and you couldn't even cook anything," she shouted to her husband and Victoria. "Don't swear, please," Harry asked her. "Fine." She turned around and got up to the stove. Before long, Victoria was scrambling to get home. Harry groomed her in every way he could. Eventually, he volunteered to walk her to the train. "Okay, if it's not too much trouble, you can walk her." Mallory didn't mind. She'd been feeling really bad lately for some reason. She had to go to work, but she couldn't get up. Her whole body was twisting and her stomach hurt. "Mallory, are you home?" Her friend Ariana came in. "Lucia, I'm here," the girl moaned. "What happened?" She ran into the room. "How are you here?" "It was the beginning of the day. Just you did not come, so I decided to find out what happened." Her friend sat on the edge of the sofa and stroked her arm. "Harry left to see his sister off, and I felt sick, so I laid down to let it go," Mallory admitted. "Well, you go on, lie down, and tomorrow come back." Maddie got up and went to work. Her husband came back late. It was almost night. "Did you walk all the way to her house?" Mallory was annoyed as usual. "I'm going to bed. I'm tired." Harry didn't say anything else. He just walked to his room and laid down there. Mallory didn't care about him. She wanted to drink some soothing tea and go to bed too, so she did. It was much easier in the morning. "Good morning." She made her way to the kitchen where Harry was already there. "Good morning." He was pouring boiling water into mugs. Mallory stood and looked at him. Usually, at this point, he kissed his wife, but today that didn't happen. Harry, she stood with her hands at her sides. Why are you looking at me like that? He didn't understand. Okay, bygones, said Mallory, now did not want to argue and find out the relationship. The girl got ready and went to work. Well, how's your health? Maddie already met her. Good, but yesterday was disgusting. Sat down on Mallory's chair. They set to work, which was a lot of work. Since Mallory didn't come out yesterday, they had to do several times as much today. Look how unevenly you've done it, Mallory showed her friend. Ariana asked Mallory, thinking half the night, which sister was Harry seeing off. Vika. She stopped work. I knew Alyosha before you, but he didn't have any sister. Lucia looked up at her friend. What? It can't be. Mallory couldn't believe that she was treated like that. And where? In her own house, are you sure? I can't say with complete certainty, Ariana looked her in the eye. I have to go home, Mallory said. What's the use? He's not there anyway. Ariana didn't think her partner might leave again. And I don't need him. I'll leave his belongings and let him go to his sister's house or his mother's. Mallory cried and cried. Will you think of throwing away men like that? Ariana wanted to stop her. That's it, I'm gone. The girl slammed the door. She didn't remember how she got to the house. She opened the door. Harry was gone. She frantically started throwing his things into her bag. After that, she looked around to see if she had forgotten anything. Mallory opened the door and pushed the things out the door. What happened here? My husband came home from work. I want to ask you about Victoria, who's been living with us for so long, and I was a fool to believe she was your sister. Mallory couldn't stop. What are you talking about? She really is my sister. Harry walked around picking up things that were right on the ground. Proof? Mallory put her hand out in front of her. I don't have any, he stammered. Can anyone prove to me that this is your sister? His wife asked him. No, he didn't look at her. Why are you averting your eyes? Mallory was very angry. She felt like if this Victoria was here, she would just tear her to pieces. Mallory, he was gonna say something, but he stopped. What? She didn't do anything either, she just stared. Yes, it really wasn't his sister. He glared at her defiantly. What? The girl's breath caught. Remember how you've been treating me lately, consumerist. You've been all the time only needing something from me, fetch, serve, no feelings. Nothing, he shouted. And why are you yelling at me now? Why did you bring her to the house? We could have met somewhere else. She raised her voice too. He couldn't rent her an apartment. He couldn't leave her on the street. They were saying things to each other in very loud tones. Go away. Mallory sat down on the nightstand, covered her face with her hands and cried. I'm sorry, you wanted to say something. Go away, she was adamant. Harry walked out. He looked back at her one more time and then just closed the doors and left. A few weeks later, Mallory found out she was expecting a baby. She would definitely not have a relationship with her husband. All she wanted was to file for divorce and move on with her life. Maddie, I'm having a little one, she told a friend at work. Oh, honey, congratulations, she hugged her. Yeah, I'm gonna be a single mom, Mallory proudly announced. Why single? The baby has a father? Ariana asked, and then she was silent, blaming herself for telling Mallory about her sister. Not a day went by that Mallory didn't cry. Every night she came home, she was hurt and resentful for everything he had done to her. She remembered the first time he held her, how she didn't want him to. And after all that, looking at the man's potential. So what? He'd repay her in the same coin. Now it was her turn to love and ignore him. You need to leave, her friend advised. And go where? Mallory looked at her with tearful eyes. I don't know, go to your father's, Maddie suggested. She didn't know much about it, but at least there was an apartment there. Right, and the baby would be born there. Mallory was grateful for the advice. She packed her bags, and in a week she left the small settlement. But she never reached her father. On the train, a man was traveling in the same seat as her. Hello, he said to her as soon as the girl entered. Good afternoon, she didn't look at him, just walked past him and dragged her bags through. Mallory wanted only one thing, to lie down and sleep and not to be touched. Let's get acquainted, he held out his hand to her. Let's not, she took her slippers and everything else out of her bag. Oh, you're such a naughty girl, the man teased her. This has nothing to do with you. Mallory finally looked up at him, and in that moment she realized she was lost. His sky blue eyes engulfed her. What's wrong? The man noticed the change in the girl's expression. My name is Mallory, and you? She changed her anger into mercy. Alexander, he held out his hand again. That's my father's name. Mallory didn't know how to keep the conversation going, so she said whatever came to mind. Mallory, are you traveling far? They started talking. Now she was no longer ignoring any of his words. No, she shook her head. I haven't been home in years. I'm going to see my mother. He began to tell her about his life. Good, she nodded, but she herself thought, call me with you. What's good? Alexander didn't understand. Everything is fine, she smiled like a fool. And come with me. He didn't know why this young woman had caught his eye. And I will. She did not break down, because he could refuse at any moment. That was good. They had to get off at some station and buy a ticket for Mallory onward. The whole next trip they talked about their future plans. And how could you agree with me so quickly? I'm a complete stranger. Alexander asked her. And I have nothing to lose, she simply answered. When they arrived, the woman met them cautiously. And rightly so, she was expecting her son alone, and he came with his fiancée, and he got on the train without her. Son, will she also live with us? The woman asked at the gate. Well, we will not leave her on the street, he smiled. Why not? The woman pretended to be a fool. All right, that's enough joking, Mallory. Come in, he turned to the girl. I don't want to embarrass anyone here. She knew she wasn't welcome. And you're not bothering anyone. Alexander was sure of that. But not a couple of days passed as the mother showed her true face. She constantly nagged the girl. Every step that was not so was condemned. Mallory could see that Alexander was beginning to notice it. Something had to be done about it. Why don't we go back? She asked him. You know where I worked. I have nothing else. When I went, I burned all the bridges, the man admitted. Nothing. I have a father. He lives in the apartment. We can go to him, said the girl. She did not know anything about the man she called father. Since she left him, she had not written or called him again. I don't even know, Alexander began to say. But Mallory was persistent, and she quickly managed to talk the man into coming with her. And now they were back on the train, talking about nothing. Can you imagine? We fell in love with each other in just a few minutes, he told her. Do you want the truth? Mallory looked at him. Of course, he nodded. Then on the train, and she told him all about it, and how her husband had left her, and how she was driving away from him, and how she'd fallen in love with his eyes. What a story. He moved over to her. Are you divorced? He asked. Yes, but there's a nuance. She lowered her eyes to her stomach. Are you pregnant? Alexander exclaimed, and it was unclear whether it was an exclamation of joy or surprise. Yes, Mallory decided not to hide anything. Business, he thought, but after a few minutes he hugged her. I'll raise her as mine own. They arrived, stepped out of the carriage. Mallory didn't know how to come to her father, what to say to him. After all, it had been so many years. They got to the house where she had spent her childhood, walked into the driveway. Hello, Daddy. She entered the apartment. Hello, the man seemed taken aback. We'll stay with you for a while. She put the bags on the floor. I thought you were dead, was all the man said. Well, as you can see, I'm alive and well. I'll give you a grandchild soon. She stroked her belly. Mallory, the father, was not sentimental, and he was not capable of tenderness either. He seemed to want to hug her, but instead, he clenched his fists, squeezed his eyes shut, and went to his room. Come in, why are you standing there? She said to her new suitor. He took off his shoes and went into the room where Mallory had shown him. They settled down. Their father was hardly noticed in the apartment at all. Oh, Alexander, I can't. My stomach was so big that I could have pushed the girl and she would have rolled away. Shall I call the doctors? He asked her. No, not yet. She didn't know why she didn't want to. But when she couldn't stand it anymore, Alexander didn't wait. He called a medical team. We're taking her away, said one of the men in a doctor's uniform. Mallory was brought to the labor and delivery room. Before she could even realize it, there was a slap, a sharp pain, and she was told she had a boy. Anthony, Mallory said. Congratulations, Mommy. Everyone in the room was smiling. Just a little more and a terrible thing could have happened. The next day, under the window of the ward in which Mallory was lying, there were two Alexanders, a father and a lover, and she was showing them her firstborn. Mallory saw that her grandfather was crying. She wanted to hug him. Suddenly she was sentimental, though she had never been. They were discharged a few days later. Alexander offered to adopt Andreka, but Mallory did not want to. Father helped with everything. He went grocery shopping, and he never asked for money. Alexander, and you are going to sit on my father's neck for long? Asked her husband Mallory. They signed with him. Wait a little, let me get used to it, he looked at her. And what to wait? The child wants to eat, she practically shouted. Alexander didn't mind working somewhere, but he couldn't find a job. One day he came home happy. What, you found a job? My wife realized. Yes, now I will go out on trips on a KMAZ, he bragged. Where's the car? Mallory didn't understand. I'll get it from my mother the other day, he said, and Mallory exhaled because she thought he was crazy. That's good, at least there'll be some money. She snuggled up to the man she loved. Mallory herself didn't understand how this could have happened, how she could have fallen in love like this. But when she hugged the man, a wave of trembling went through her whole body. She couldn't help it. It was evident that Alexander treated her with the same love. He loved Anthony as his own. That was out of the question. Well, everyone, on your way, he said goodbye to his wife and son. Be careful, she couldn't tear herself away from him. The first time it was scary both to go and to let him go. But afterwards, when it had already become a habit, it became the norm. It all began when Andriushka was 5 years old. Alexander returned from a voyage. He came home. Mallory wanted to approach him, but he pushed her away. What are you doing? She couldn't understand, and then she smelled alcohol. Nothing, he told her gruffly. Alexander, what happened to you? She couldn't understand it. Nothing, he told her in syllables. Why are you treating me like this? She wanted to know. But Alexander had become withdrawn. He would often have a drink after a voyage, alone in the kitchen. Mallory told him that it wouldn't end well, but he didn't listen to her and pushed her away. One day, Alexander got so drunk that he couldn't get up from his chair. Mallory came to help him. She took his hands and tried to lift him up, but he looked at her with a look that made her afraid. In the morning, when she wanted to talk to her husband, he just walked away from the conversation. You again? She watched the man walk toward the refrigerator. Mallory, you better stay out of it, he warned her. What's going to happen? She couldn't understand. It's gonna get worse, Mallory's father heard it too. But they didn't take the information seriously, and for nothing. Once Alexander returned from a trip, at first he was normal, hugged and kissed his wife. But by evening the situation had changed. Mallory said something to him, and he just pushed her away. She pushed back, then she got her first blow. That time the father stood up for his daughter. She didn't understand. Listen, why do you put up with it? Go to your grandmother. She will make you a conspiracy, her friends told her. Mallory looked at them and wondered why she hadn't realized it earlier. Mallory found out where to find the grandmother who knew everything. She went to her house and got a picture of her husband. Old girl, everything is bad for you, said the old woman when she looked at the picture. What's the matter? Is he going to die? Mallory was afraid. He won't die, but he'll leave for sure, and then he'll dry up from boredom. The old woman was looking at something else. I do not understand, explain normally, almost cried the girl. He was bewitched, strongly, on the blood, said the grandmother. Can anything be done? Mallory asked. No, as long as you are near, to that one attracts, and when with her, then to you, so and languishes, said the woman and was silent. What should I do? Mallory didn't understand. Leave before it's too late, or both you and your boyfriend will be bad, the old woman said seriously. Mallory did not understand how this could happen, and what to do with all this now. She walked back home and thought her life was over. Daddy, can I talk to you? She approached the man when she was home. Sure enough, he looked at his daughter. He felt sorry for her for some reason. Mallory sat down on a chair and told him everything. You know, I think you should do what that woman told you to do, he told her. Why don't you go see that woman? She asked for advice. What do you expect her to do? You've been told she's tainted. There's no way to fix it, Alexander said. Okay, she got up and gathered her thoughts. It was very hard, but through tears and pain, she gathered her husband's things. When he once again returned from a voyage, she told him everything. They embraced and stood like that for a few minutes. Forgive me for everything, Alexander told her. He was leaving, but not to that woman, but to nowhere. What am I going to do? Mallory asked her father. Today, she was no longer the same girl, careless and promiscuous. She was the mother of a child who needed to be nurtured and raised. To move on, her father told her. A few weeks flew by like a blink of an eye. Mallory realized she was pregnant, but it was too late to do anything about it. Once again, she came home in tears. Now what? The father looked at his daughter and marveled that she was always going through something. "Daddy, I'm going to have a baby again," she cried. "What's there to cry about? It's a joy," he hugged her. "How are we going to live too?" She was at a loss. "Don't worry, I'll help you with everything," he was sure of it. Life was now turning on a new leaf. In the morning, Anthony had to take her to kindergarten, after that shopping, and then home, cleaning and cooking. But soon Mallory couldn't do any of that. She was admitted to hospital for preservation. "If you keep stressing your body like this, you might just lose the baby," the doctor told her. "Okay, I hear you." Mallory was angry again at the world and the injustice in it. Her father tried to do everything he could to help his daughter. He had taken over Anthony's care. Now he was tutoring him. Mallory had given birth. She was now the mother of 2 sons. Serioso was born weak. Everyone was worried about him. But he pulled through, and now his life was not threatened. Until he was 8 months old, Mallory stayed home with him, but that time was not wasted. "Daddy, can you help me with my loan?" she asked the man. "I don't get it." He tore himself away from the newspaper. "I've come up with a business. I need money to start it." She showed him the notes. "My father didn't believe it could work. There was a time when only the fittest survived in business." That's what he told his daughter. But she stood her ground, promised him she'd pay every penny. "I have the money." He looked at Mallory. "From where?" She was discouraged. "From the sale of your grandmother's house," he admitted. "So why did you say anything all this time?" She was already thinking up a plan in her head. "I'll give it to you. But if it doesn't work out, you can't blame me." Alexander stood up and walked over to the dresser. Mallory was excited that perhaps now her dreams were destined to come true. She made arrangements with vendors, rented a space. It seemed to her that everything was so easy. Now she would start and the money would flow into her hands. But that didn't happen. It would seem that everything was there, and everything was done like everyone else. But there were no people. Why, no one could say. A month passed. Everything Mallory had bought went sour and spoiled. There was no rent to pay, so they had to give up the idea. Well, her father looked at her. "Don't look at me like that," Mallory cried. "I warned you," he told her for the umpteenth time. There was nothing to do but get a job somewhere. She went to several stores and stalls. She was hired by a man who ran a diner that needed a bartender, and Mallory accepted. She was on shift every night now. She had to see drunken faces every day. She had to listen to the negativity. But Mallory tolerated it. She had children. That evening she was finishing work. The money was counted and laid on the counter. 2 young men walked into the bar. "We're closing up," Mallory said with a smile on her face. "We'll be quick," one of the guys answered her. "No, I'm going home now." It was morning. She had to sleep for a few hours, then take the kids to school, and then to the garden, and then do the housework. "Are you going to yell?" One of them came up to her. Mallory was scared. "Come on," said the other one. "What are you doing? Sticking up for her?" The one who was hitting on her looked back. "Let's go, since the girl needs to go home." The second kid took his hand. They went out. Mallory sat down. She needed to recover from the shock. And when she stood up, she saw a terrible picture. There was no money on the counter. She had completely forgotten about it. She sank back into the chair and cried. "Mallory, what has happened again?" The father of the house saw her with eyes red with tears. "They stole all the proceeds from me, which is a lot of money," she told him, and tears rolled from her eyes again. How could this have happened? The father realized that his daughter's life was going through a rough patch. He felt so sorry for her that he wanted to do everything to make her happy. "Don't be upset. Everything will be all right," he said. Mallory thought she would explain to her supervisor what had happened, but that didn't happen. "Do you realize how much you'll have to work for free now?" asked her boss. "It's not my fault there are no guards," she cried. "I don't know anything," the man told her. "Your tears won't help." Mallory returned home. She wanted to lie down and never get up again. Only the children held her. She couldn't leave them and leave their father alone with them. "I have to take out a loan. I'll pay it off and get a new job," she told her father. "I'll think about it," the man nodded. It was only now that Mallory began to realize why she needed an education. She could have gotten a decent job somewhere. Today she was even ready to go to school, but there was nothing she could do about it. Alexander made up his mind. He took out a loan. He took even a little more money. He also had some savings. Here, give it to your boss. He gave her a wad of paper bills. Daddy, I'll pay you back, she told him. Can we try again, but with minimal expenses? He asked his daughter. What? We tried it. It didn't work. Mallory wasn't as irresponsible now as she had been before. I'm telling you, without any sophistication, Alexander insisted. What are you suggesting? Mallory didn't understand. Open a diner on the highway, a couple of tables, pies or chebureks and some snacks, Alexander said. Don't you think it wouldn't bring in much revenue? She asked him. Shall we try it? He didn't even ask, he insisted. Suit yourself, but I'm used to it not working out. My eyes were wet. Okay, but without support I will not cope. They sat in the room. It was already late. The children were asleep. The very next day, Alexander called his friend. He knew there was something he could do to help. Archie, hello, he called him. What's up? You never just call. His friend asked him. Remember, you told me that you had a garage somewhere that you didn't know where to put? Alexander asked. Yes, it's mine, but the land is being taken away, so we need to move it somewhere, he said. I'm taking it away from you. Alexander was determined. What do you want it for? Archie was surprised. I have a case, the man evaded the answer. All right, it doesn't matter to me. Take it away for nothing, but you'll take it out yourself, the friend agreed. Agreed, Alexander hung up the phone. He was glad that from the first time and immediately everything worked out. He made a call to another acquaintance who could help with the transportation of the garage. That one didn't refuse, just needed to wait a little. Mallory, it's done, he told his daughter that evening. The man's eyes burning. What? I don't understand. She was confused. Sit down, now I'll tell you everything, he asked her. They again sat at the table for a long time. Everything was spoken. A week later, there was already a garage on the highway. Alexander himself welded a window there, refinished the doors. Furniture could be brought in. They put a table stand, 2 tables, a few chairs. The man bought a stove so that it was possible to cook, and several kinds of liquor, all removed with the paperwork. Well, shall we begin? The father asked his daughter. Come on, she was ready for anything, just to start earning. Is there a beer? Mallory shuddered. She hadn't expected someone to come in so quickly. Sure, she turned and smiled. What else? The man waited. There was no food, so he only bought beer. No way. She doubted anyone would stop at the highway at all. But here we go. Mallory couldn't believe it could happen. But the money was coming in and the cost was small. Daddy, if it wasn't for you, she said one day, and then she went over and hugged him. At that moment, she realized that she had blamed him for nothing and had been angry most of her life. Now it was clear that her father was not to blame for her mother's death. What am I? You do everything there. If you didn't work, there would be nothing, she said. Well, without money, I wouldn't have done anything. She went to bed because she was getting tired. This diner on the highway became very popular with those who frequented it. Mallory cooked perfect and delicious pies and chebureks. Everyone liked them, both truckers and ordinary, passing people. The hostess, visitors were coming up to the counter. Now, she would come out and make and sell what people wanted. Mallory, you need to expand, they told her. Not yet. She was tired of standing here. But she knew it wasn't the right time, not financially, not in her condition, and it wasn't the right time. There was one good thing about this place. Almost no one who was in disrepair came in. Daddy, why don't we move to the city? She asked him 2 years later. Are you sure you've already tried it there? He asked. If I was sure, I wouldn't have consulted you. She was cooking dinner. Okay, take your chances. Just don't close on the highway. I'll pick up here. The man muttered. Mallory had found a building to rent. Now all that was left was to think of the rest. She didn't make it a cafe, but just like the track, just snacks and light alcohol. The hostess, just as they opened, a man came in immediately who was poorly dressed and also smelled. Come out please, Mallory was rude to no one. Che, won't you give it to me? He whistled through slits that were instead of teeth. Mallory went there, to her own place, and here stayed her father. He did his best to keep away the drunks, keep the building clean. There was a profit, and not a bad one, but it was more and more from what was done on the highway. Mallory was glad that slowly, but it was working out. She tried, as much as she could, to spend time with the kids, but it wasn't really working out for her. Mallory, stop renting this building. Let's buy our own, her father said. Where did you get all this money from? She was amazed. I paid it all off, then saved. Nothing. Practically no spending, he smiled. So Mallory, with her father's encouragement, decided to take a chance. She found the right space, tried to imitate Selena, her first boss. I think I found it. Mallory came home one day. If you have enough money, you buy it, he told his daughter. What about the diner? She asked. I'll take care of it, the father promised. Good, there's nothing complicated there. They have a good relationship. Just please don't change if a lot of money comes in, her father asked her. Really? She turned around. Right now, Mallory wanted to be just like the woman from the cafe that stabbed into her memory. She was striving for it. There was so much work to be done, from paperwork to buying inventory to hiring employees. It's not easy, Mallory said at home at night. It will get easier, her father promised her. I hope so, she sighed. Almost everything was ready to open, but Mallory was afraid of something. She didn't have the staff yet. Mallory, hi, a friend from her high school childhood called her. Oh, Selena, how long has it been since we've seen each other? Mallory was surprised she called her. Yeah, here I am visiting. Why don't we get together? She suggested. Of course, Mallory was glad to meet someone from her past. She was getting ready for the evening, picking out a dress because they were going to a restaurant. Hi, friends. Selena looked at her friend with envy. Mallory noticed it, and something in her woke up. She wanted to show off. Hi, how are you? What do you do? She was proud. She saw that Selena was not dressed like her. I'm in my profession. It was kind of embarrassing. Oh, good thing I didn't get in then, she said, and they entered the place. They chose a table, sat down at it. The waiter came over. Though Mallory realized that she didn't need to spend much, since it was such a spending period now, but she wanted to show her friends so much that she went up, even though she didn't have those crusts. Mallory, come on, it's so expensive. Selena looked at the menu and what her friend was ordering. It's okay, I can afford it now. She looked at the waiter to come over. When everything was already on the table and her friends had a couple sips of wine each, upset, Mallory realized that she had absolutely nothing to talk to her ex-girlfriend about. She wasn't going to tell her what she'd been through over the years. Can we sit down with you girls? Two young men approached them. Yes, of course, Mallory tilted her head. You what? I do not agree. I came to talk to my friend, and it turns out that it is not. At home I have a husband, she said and got up from the table. You're welcome. Mallory smiled at her. Selena was horrified. She didn't expect to be treated like this. So are you leaving? Asked the man who had been watching and listening to all of this before. No, why not? I'm staying. Mallory smiled at him as best she could. Have a seat. The friends took a seat at Mallory's table. You're sorry. We didn't mean for that to happen to your friend, said the same man. It's okay. I haven't liked those upstarts since high school. She sat with her head held high. I'm Billy, and this is my friend Frederick. He introduced himself. Nice to meet you, Mallory, she smiled. What a lovely name, Billy said. Thank you, she nodded. Everyone sat around the table. There was pleasant conversation. When slow music started playing, Billy asked Mallory to dance. They moved to the beat of the music. She was flattered by the men's attention. It had been a long time since she had been with anyone while she was dealing with her own issues. I'd like to meet you again, her new acquaintance told her as he walked her home. I don't mind, she told him, where she wants to open a new cafe. I'm surprised that such a fragile girl is doing such things. He appreciated her act. They parted. Mallory went home. She kept thinking about today's meetings. Why did she do that to Selena? She hadn't done anything bad to her. She decided to call her friend. Hello, she answered. Selena, I want to apologize, Mallory began. You've been a slut, and you're still a slut, and your rags aren't going to save you. Selena just hummed up. Mallory looked at her father, who was standing in the hallway watching her talk. What did you do again? He asked. Just seeing a childhood friend, she replied. And bragging? He guessed. Dad, she didn't want to talk about it. Okay, how are things going with the cafe? He asked. It's fine. I met a man today. If everything goes well, he'll help me. Mallory was sure of it for some reason. But if so, did you tell him about the boys? He meant her kids. Of course not, but there's still time. She looked at him with big eyes. Okay, go to your sons. He went to the kitchen. Mallory waited for Billy to call or come, but he was still gone. She was getting desperate, thinking he was just throwing words around, but he showed up within a week. "Where have you been so long?" she asked him. She didn't know if he was telling the truth or not. "Well, the main thing is that he came." She touched him a little. "Yes, I could not come, I promise." He looked at her with loving eyes. "Come and have a look," she beckoned him. They went inside. Almost everything was finished, but there was still a lot of work to be done. Plenty of room, but he looked around. "Yeah, that's what I liked about it. She really did take a long time to find the perfect building. If you need any help, just say the word. I'm always here for you." He walked over and put his arm around her waist. "I hope so." Mallory knew how to handle men. That evening, the couple went out for a little while, and then they went to visit Billy. His apartment was a little bigger than Verina's, but while hers hadn't been remodeled in a long time, this one was state-of-the-art. "It's nice here." She ran her hand over the wallpaper. "I tried, as I knew you would come to visit me." He helped her take off her coat. They walked into the kitchen. Billy had a counter there, and they sat on either side of it. "Why?" he asked. "Couldn't hurt," she relaxed. Now, Billy poured it into glasses. They just sat and talked. There was no harassment or anything. Mallory was mesmerized by this man. She remembered how she was good with guys and men. This was different. She wanted to do everything for him. "Would you like to stay or walk home?" he asked. Mallory wanted to stay, but she overpowered herself and said she had to go home. "How are things with your boyfriend?" Alexander asked her when she got home. "Everything is fine," she answered and went to her room. There was a lot to do in the morning. Billy called her the next day, saying he would stop by and help her with the appliances and design. "I'm so grateful to you." Mallory really saw the man in this man. "You're welcome," he hummed up. They met in her driveway. Mallory got in the car and they drove to the stores. Billy, as promised, helped with everything. He soon met Alexander, who also liked the handsome young man. They did everything together. No matter what happened, Billy was there for them in every situation. "All that's left is to hire the staff and we can open," Mallory told her favorite man. "Yes, I'm so glad it worked out for you." He kissed her. The selection of people began. A woman was chosen to be the cook, a woman who came from somewhere far away. But she was so highly recommended by people that Mallory couldn't help but take her. "Probably one waiter will be enough for us at first," Billy said. "Of course, we'll have to see how people react to all this," Mallory agreed with him. The opening was on her birthday. "My dears, I am so happy that this day has finally come. It took me so long to get to everything I have now." Mallory even cried. "It's gonna be okay." Billy stood by her side. "And I believe you." She looked at him. "And I have another surprise for you." Billy couldn't keep quiet any longer. "Sure, go ahead," she waited. "Mallory, will you be my wife?" He held out a small velvet box to her. "Billy," she looked at the ring and couldn't believe it was really happening. "I don't know why, but you attracted me. I promise to be a good husband, partner, and friend to you, and I will try to be a father to your children." He held her tightly against him. "I congratulate you," the father whispered in his daughter's ear. How everything ends well, one might have thought, but this was only the beginning of Mallory's real story. She turned out to be nothing like she wanted others to see her as. Now she was getting ready to get married. Money really does spoil a person. She had come to buy a wedding dress. "I need a dress," she said in such a tone of voice that she just didn't want to be talked to any further. "Why don't you change your tone and tell me what kind?" A woman came out to her. "I have a wedding in a few days, so I need a beautiful, preferably lush," said Mallory. "Okay, we'll look for something for you," said the saleswoman and went into the depths. She began to take out dresses for Mallory, but she did not like everything. Finally, when she had tried them all on, she threw them in her face and told her that she no longer needed her services. "How dare you talk to me like that?" The saleswoman went at her. "Who are you to raise your voice at me?" "Just a simple shopkeeper," Mallory retorted. "What? And who are you? Have you been up long?" Her mother was an alcoholic and herself the same. The women stood and shouted at each other so much that people who walked by heard everything and looked back. "Look at you and me." Mallory couldn't calm down. "You walked out of my store, and know if you want to buy a dress in this town, you're not going to make it," resented the woman in the store. "We'll see." Mallory turned around and walked out of the premises. Things were not going the way she wanted them to. The bride-to-be really couldn't buy a dress anywhere. Billy was ashamed to admit why this could happen. "So what? You're going to be without a white outfit at all?" he asked. "If nothing suits me," she lied to him. "Well, Let's go to the neighboring town. They're to measure, the man suggested. I do not want, I'll just be in beige. She pulled out of the closet ordinary dress. All right, you're the bride. You get to choose, Billy agreed. They didn't invite anyone to the wedding, only their relatives. First, they had a wedding ceremony in the registry office, and then they sat in a cafe, which was owned by Mallory. Billy became a real partner of the girl. He knew a lot of things, advised his wife, but he did not abandon his own business. How do you have time for everything? They went to bed at night. I do not know, I am driven by love, he said to her in response, and she pressed her lips. Billy and Mallory had been married for exactly 1 year, and all was well. At first glance, it looked like they were in a business relationship. Maybe it was. I'm off to work, was the only phrase heard at home. The cafe was bringing in quite a bit of profit for Mallory. She couldn't help but be happy about it. Billy was there for her. Look, I think we need to increase the staff, he said to her one day. Okay, I'll see who I can take on, a hostess told him. In her cafe, Mallory was like a queen. She could boss people around, even going beyond their duties. Her husband often made remarks to her about it, but she paid no attention to them. Why do you do that? He didn't recognize her for what she was at work and what she was at home. Let them be afraid, she said. You see, at some point, when you feel bad, they'll just turn their backs on you, he told her. Oh, I don't need them. I have a loving family. Mallory was sure of her words. Okay, I'll do everything on the financial side, and you take care of people. I won't meddle with you. He agreed with his wife. It was easy to choose waitresses. Only 2 girls came. One didn't fit right away. Her age didn't match. But Mallory took the other one. You can get to work right now, she told her imperiously. Anna turned around and went into the hall. There, another girl told her what to do and how to do it. You a little careful. The mistress is a monster. If you do anything wrong, immediately throws out, warned her partner Catherine. And what are we here, her slaves? Did not understand the girl. What about slaves? She pays well. People leave tips, said in a whisper Catherine. If there will be something unclear, be sure to contact me, admonished the new girlfriend waitress. Well, she went to see what was on the menu. As long as everything was fine, Mallory watched how everything worked. She was satisfied. The family was fine too. But at some point, things changed. First, there was trouble at work. Mallory, Anna walked into her office. Why didn't you knock? She asked her in an uncomplaining voice. I gave you a voicemail, the girl said. What's in it for me? She looked at her. I wanted to tell you that in your kitchen. Anna raised her voice a little so that she could be heard. What kitchen? She didn't understand. In yours. Anna tried to speak as softly as possible. Not mine, but ours. You work here too. Mallory gasped with anger. She couldn't believe that this insolent woman could talk to her like that. Okay, there's mayhem in our kitchen. The girl looked straight into her boss's face. You don't have to worry about that. Go wash the dishes, she commanded her. Why should I do the dishes? Anna was indignant. I used to wash too, and nothing. The boss was beginning to boil. Catherine came into the office. She saw that her friend went into the office, so she hurried to get her out of there. What are you doing? She asked her. What, I can't even say a word. She was on edge. Don't go there, she has some problems. We'll all be fired because of you, Catherine asked. Anna went with her, but inside she was angry. They were standing together wiping down the cutlery when Mallory came in. What are you doing here? She shouted. And don't raise your voice at us, Anna seemed to say quietly. What? The woman turned to her. Sorry, Catherine answered for her friend. Let her say it. The hostess waved her head at Anna. No, the woman turned and looked her in the eye. Ah, so I'll have you. At that moment, Billy entered the cafe. What's going on here? He asked when he saw how hot the situation was. Nothing, my love. The woman came up to him. They went to her office and Billy turned around and looked at Anna. Please, enough already. We're nobody here. We could be on the street at any moment, Catherine begged her friend. Okay, but if she says anything to me, I will not keep silent. The girl looked towards the office. I'm going on a business trip, Billy told his wife. What kind of business trip? She didn't understand him. An ordinary one. He leaned over and kissed her. You got yourself abroad. Mallory narrowed her eyes. I've got you, he said. And what were the business trips? She couldn't understand. Just a simple, ordinary business trip. He tried to tell her something. Mallory turned away. She didn't say anything else. Her throat was cramping. She wanted to cry, but she held on. What else? To let the staff see her weakness. At home, while her husband was away, things started to get messy. The mother yelled at the kids, took it out on the father. It feels like you've gone crazy, Alexander told her. And you don't say a word. It seemed the work environment had now moved into their home. Billy had arrived. He didn't even think it could be like this at home. What, you're here? His wife yelled at him. Mallory, calm down, he told her. No, I need to know where you've been, she told him. I told you I was on a business trip. You can look at the papers. He threw his briefcase at her feet. I'm not looking at anything, Mallory yelled like a victim. Oh, I'm leaving. Call me when you calm down. He closed the door behind him. Well, go on then. She was indignant. Are you stupid? Her father asked her. What? She turned on him. You might not come back since you're acting like this, Alexander said and went to his room. Let no one come back. She was not herself. Mallory could not calm down for a long time. She sat alone in her room for hours. After that, she thought everything over, regretted that she had done that to her husband. But the woman was not going to call him. Well, and let it roll. She once again hung up the phone when he did not answer. And the very next day, she realized what she had done. Mallory started calling every place Billy could be, but no one knew where he was. The woman cried. She didn't know what to do. Billy came back a week later. Where have you been? Mallory shouted, but then she realized and changed her tone. Mallory, I love you, but if you keep acting like this, I'm going to pack my things and leave, he told her. I'm sorry, she hugged him and kissed him. They started working together again, but Billy didn't trust her as much as he used to. Why are you in the way? Mallory yelled at Anna. Why are you talking to me like that? She asked her. As I want, so I talk. Continue to behave like that with her subordinates woman. But answer why? Anna wanted to hear the answer to that question. What do you want me to confess? Mallory smirked. At least it's all for a reason, said the girl already in the back of the hostess. It's none of your business. She didn't turn around. Billy put up with his wife's antics for several years. Then one day he went on a business trip again. They're kind of rare, aren't they? Mallory was angry again. Frequent is bad, rare too. Her husband didn't understand. Okay, I'll shut up. She made a motion like she was shutting her mouth. Billy left. Mallory gave all of herself to the cafe. Business was going very well there, but she still kept a tireless eye on everything. One day Mallory went home and decided to go through to see what was going on in the kitchen. Then the woman opened the emergency exit, and there sat Anna. What are you doing here? The girl heard the mistress speak calmly for the first time. Nothing. She did not turn around, but it was heard that she was crying. What's the matter? Why are you crying? Suddenly the woman wanted to ask. What's it to you, sobbed Anna. She did not want to talk. At that moment Mallory remembered herself, how she also went and could not get a job. And after she wasn't hired, she would sit and cry. Why was it her, Anna, that she was taking it out on? Let's talk. The woman sat down next to the girl on the steps. What am I supposed to talk to you about? You wouldn't understand. How do you know? Maybe I was the same. Mallory looked away. I was born in a very poor family. It's even softly said, the girl began to say. So, a lot of people have it. Mallory shrugged. Did you? She turned to her. And you think, when Mallory looked at her life back, she was horrified at what she was doing. Look how you are now. Anna was still crying. It's all my doing, Mallory told her. They sat and talked about everything and nothing. It was the first time the mistress had had a heart-to-heart talk with her subordinates. Anna, calm down and there is no need to get upset over nothing. Mallory stood up. Okay, thank you for talking to me, she was grateful. Go to work, said the cafe owner calmly. Yes. Anna went to the hall and Mallory got ready to go home. Billy was still gone. The woman didn't know what to make of it anymore. Why had the business trip dragged on so long? She was sitting at home when a key began to turn in the keyhole. Billy jumped Mallory up from the couch and went to the door. Hi, he walked into the apartment. What took you so long? His wife asked him and wanted to kiss him. No me, he took her hands away. What happened? She couldn't understand. Mallory, I'm sorry, I'm leaving, he told her. What? She wanted to scream to cry, but her body felt as if it were restrained. I came to get my things, goodbye. He walked to the room, packed his things and headed for the door. What about me? She looked after him. You're doing fine, he said without turning around. Mallory stood in the hallway. She didn't know what to do. She went to her room, sat down on the couch. The next day she came to work. Anna was already there. She was wearing a beautiful dress. You said you didn't have extra money for outfits, and today, what are you dressed up in? Was surprised by Mallory. It's new, she spun around in front of her. I can see that, that's why I'm asking, sighed the landlady. She had cried all night and had no idea what to do now. My sister came to visit and gave it to me, she said excitedly. Well, Mallory heard her, but did not understand what she said. She went to her room, but she couldn't think about work. She just sat in her chair and stared at one point. Mallory felt like her life was over. She didn't want to live without Billy. And now he was just gone. The woman got up from the chair. She decided to go to her husband's house and talk. So she did. She left the cafe and drove. She thought through what she would say to him, what she would apologize for. Nothing came to mind. She got out of the car, went into the driveway, went up to the floor. There was his door. Her hands went cold. Mallory started to worry. She knocked, heard someone coming to the door. Who? A woman's voice asked. Mallory turned white when she heard it. Mallory, Billy's wife, she answered, still hoping for something. He told me you could come. A young girl opened the door. Who are you? Mallory went at her. Woman, what are you doing? The girl put her hands out in front of her. Fucking juvenile, where's my husband? Mallory was shocked. Billy and I have been together for how many months? He's filing for divorce today, she said. This can't be happening, shrieked Mallory. She ran out of the driveway, wondering what she could do to get back at him. Nothing came to mind. She went back to the cafe. Her work was in full swing. She went up to her office and Billy was sitting there. Where have you been? He asked calmly. Oh, you, she snapped at him. I see. Why did you go to see her? He took her hands in his so she wouldn't twitch. How could you? I loved you and you cheated on me with a teenager, screamed the woman. Mallory, I met her. I loved her. It's not your fault, but you need to accept it, he said. I'll sue you for everything. The woman couldn't stop. Okay, I came to talk calmly and you do not understand, then I'll go, he told her. Go on, she threw something at him. She couldn't sit still. She went out into the hall. Anna, the woman called out to her. Yes, she was afraid of being yelled at again. Come in to see me, called out to her. Anna didn't know why she was being summoned. She went up to the woman, who invited her to sit down. Just wanted to talk, Mallory said. Phew, the girl exhaled loudly. What did you think? Mallory looked at her. Nothing, shook her head. The girl shook her head. They sat and had a heart-to-heart talk. From that day on, Anna was a fixture in the principal's office. They chatted. She reminded Mallory of her own. Turns out you might not be so bad, Anna told her. Mallory was telling Anna about her husband leaving her and how much it hurt her. She shared with her. The girl nodded. She sympathized with her mistress. That's enough. Let's go home, she told her. Anna was still staying put and Mallory was leaving. A few months passed. Anna blossomed before her eyes. What's going on with you? Mallory asked her subordinate. My sister is getting married. She has such a good fiancé. He helps us in everything. Now it is easier, Anna smiled. Will you invite me to the wedding? Mallory asked. Of course, she smiled. When and where? Mallory wondered. She remembered the day of her wedding. I don't know yet, but as soon as I find out, I'll be sure to let you know. Anna smiled. They broke up again. Mallory continued working and figuring out how to get back at her husband. Let him go, her father pleaded. I can't. How could he leave me? Mallory said. It's your own fault, her father barked. You never support me, she told her father. The other day you were apologizing and thanking me, and now he squinted. Oh, come on. Now Mallory's life was in disarray. She didn't know what to do, how to be. On one hand, she didn't want to do her ex-husband any harm, but he had hurt her so badly. Mallory sat and realized that she had lived to such years, and she had nothing. No friends, no one to talk to. Children are also not interlocutors. She could talk to her father, but she didn't want to. Dad, she went into his room. What should I do? Nothing, calm down. Why are you so angry at the whole world? He only did not shout. I don't understand it myself. She couldn't analyze these things. A month later, Anna came to her office. She said that in a month her sister would have a celebration. She talked to her and she agreed to accept her as a guest. At least I'll take my mind off things, the woman said aloud. She really wanted to relax a little. The cafe was still operating, but it couldn't compete with the establishments that had started to appear. Therefore, the woman no longer had the income she had at the beginning. Hello. Anna met her on the doorstep of the restaurant. Hi, the woman approached her. Come on in, and Anna led her through. When she entered the hall, she nearly had a heart attack. At the wedding table sat the bride and groom, with her Billy being the groom. Mallory stood there, staring, unable to comprehend anything. Come in. As if nothing had happened, Anna said. I can't, the girl glared at her. And you should, the girl took her boss under the arm. And they went. As she sat at the table, she couldn't take her eyes off Billy. How could this have happened? Why had he traded her for this young girl? Somebody offered her food, but she couldn't get enough. When the congratulations began, she too was lifted from the table. Hello, she said and smiled. She kept her mark. Well, and congratulations? Asked her guest after a long pause. Congratulations, she raised her glass and drank. And I don't want you to sit down, Billy stood up. I already came to talk to you, but you were so angry that I just left. Billy, let's do it later. Mallory didn't want to talk to him in front of everyone. Why later? You don't want one-on-one. You have to do it like this. I want to be honest with you, he looked at her. And Mallory was thinking at that moment, how handsome he was. Tony, she got up again. When you and I met, you were dissing your girlfriend, showing her what a well-to-do woman you were, even though by and large, it wasn't really true. My friend and I overheard this conversation and came over. As it happens, your date had left. But when I got to know you better, you turned out to be a kind and good person. I realized I was wrong about you. The guests began to sigh. They didn't want to hear it. Billy, Mallory said again. It's okay, I won't be long. So when I helped you do everything in your cafe, you didn't even thank me, you took me for granted. But I didn't pay attention to it. And then the work started, and what did you do? You had a simple cafe. Yes, it was profitable. And what? You need to feel like you're a queen. So you know you're not. Now that I'm gone, you can't handle it all. Hire a good financier who will do something for you, but not the fact that he won't cheat. Billy stopped for a drink of water. I don't want to hear it, practically shouted Mallory. But you're going to have to. So know this, if you're a kind and helpful person, you'll attract the same kind of people to you. And if you're evil and greedy, it's the same. I've seen what you can be. And when he came to the cafe, and there's this poor girl sitting there sobbing, he pointed at Anna. What has she done to you to make you treat her like that? Oh, you, snorted the woman at Anna. Don't touch my daughter, stood up from the table. The mother of the bride and Anna. Mallory almost fainted. It was the same aunt from the dress store. How could this happen? Was this all done on purpose? She didn't understand. I don't know, Billy replied, but after I saw your waitress crying, I put her in the car and asked her what happened. She told me about what you were doing in the cafe, making a mess of it, trying to make you feel like a lady. She didn't want to feel like a lady. Mallory was crying. She just wanted to get out of there. She didn't care what anyone thought of her, just let her go. Then I brought Anna home, and her mom and sister were there. When the woman told me how you picked out the dresses, I was very surprised too. I knew you weren't like that. Billy stopped talking. I got you a job on purpose to teach you a lesson. I knew what you were like and I trusted you. There was only one thing that happened by accident, and that was a good thing. I told my sister about it once, and she asked me to show her Billy. She'd seen him from a distance, and then when he was on a business trip, they met by chance, and he fell in love with her. No one forced him to, and at that moment Mallory looked at the young people. They were so beautiful and happy. The woman drank another glass in a gulp and left the table. She drove home, tears covering her eyes. She began to analyze, and indeed, as long as she was soft and fluffy, and her life was fine, and as soon as she became angry, then everything was wrong. Where did you come from? Her father met her in the driveway. Leave me alone, screamed Mallory, even though she didn't want to do it, but her temper couldn't be fixed. Well, her father didn't argue. Mallory sat in the kitchen. a bottle in front of her, pouring out her grief. "What are you doing again?" Alexander came in and grabbed what was on the table. "Give it back," looked at him, "daughter. If you drink even a sip, I'll stop talking to you for life," he told her. "Daddy, I feel sick," she cried again. "Pull yourself together and start doing something," the man advised her. Mallory woke up in the morning, went to the bathroom, looked at herself in the mirror. There was a pretty woman looking back at her. But if anyone knew what kind of character she had, they would never want to socialize. Starting a new life, she said to herself. The cafe had been given a complete makeover. It wasn't a simple diner now. Mallory had made it a date spot for young couples and more. Everyone who worked for her respected and appreciated the manager. Not because she kept them in line, but because she was calm and reasonable. Mallory, one of the waitresses, came in one day. "Yeah," she looked up at her. "There's a man asking for you," she told her. "All right, let him come in," she told her. Billy walked into the office, and Mallory wondered what he wanted from her, since it had been so many years since they had broken up. "Hi," he sat down at the desk. "Why are you here?" She wanted to know. "How many years and you still haven't forgiven?" he asked. "What do you care?" She wouldn't look at him. "I came to apologize and offer you something," he said in a businesslike manner. "Well, I accept the apology. What's your offer?" She was curious. "Would you like to run a nice hotel, where there is a restaurant and everything else?" He asked and sat silent, waiting for an answer. "Why such a question to me?" She didn't understand. "I see how you have everything organized here, so I believe that you will manage there too. And I thought you would do something after our divorce, but you didn't do anything, so you could be trusted," he said seriously. "Well, I'll have to think about it." Mallory looked at him and couldn't believe he'd ever been her husband. "Okay, Billy, I won't think about it, I'll do it." She got up from the table. "That's great, I'm happy for you and congratulations on a good position." He shook her hand. "Thank you." She was glad he came to her. After the man left, she sat for a while longer and went home. In the morning, she put on a new suit, shoes, styled her hair, and went to meet her new co-workers. Mallory knew she wasn't going to yell and swear at anyone. She had experienced firsthand that it never leads to anything good. "Hello," the handsome man smiled at her. "Good morning, my name is Mallory," she told him. "Oh, welcome." He opened the door in front of her. The woman entered the lobby. It was bright and cozy. The team was fully assembled. They didn't know yet who would be their new leader. "Hello, team," she said. "Greetings." Everyone immediately exhaled when they heard that they were not someone's subordinates, but a team. "It is a pleasure to be here today and to see your faces. I hope we will work together and help each other." She believed that was the case. As everyone dispersed, Mallory was approached by the man who had met her. "May I ask what you are doing tonight?" He asked the woman forehead to forehead. "And for what purpose are you interested?" She realized she was beginning to flirt. She liked him immediately. Oliver worked here too. He was a little over 50, graying whiskers and black eyebrows, which made him unusual. "I'd like to ask you out on a date. You didn't try to be sly." "I'd be happy to accept." She averted her eyes, remembering again what Billy had told her about kindness and malice. "Then I'll pick you up at 7. He looked at her. "I'll be waiting." She was glad of the offer. "See you then." He touched her hand and went to attend to his business. And Mallory went to her father to tell him about her new job. "I'm happy for you, daughter." He hugged her. Mallory met with Oliver. They had a great evening. The woman was in awe of what the man knew what it could do. He offered her not to procrastinate, but to start dating right away. She did not refuse. Now they are together. Oliver turned out to be a good friend and mentor to Billy. One day he suggested that they all go out together. Mallory said no because she wasn't ready for that yet. "Will you marry me?" he asked the woman a few months later. "You know, it's not the first time I've heard that phrase, but I still can't refuse." She laughed and took the ring he was offering. "Believe me, no one else will tell it to you but me." He hugged her and she smiled because she was happy as she was the first time.
Thank you for watching this video to the end. Subscribe to the channel. Like it, write comments if you like the story, and see you on the channel.